I now know what it feels like to sit next to a rock star, sitting next to Senator Durbin. Throughout the evening, there's been a parade of mostly dreamers who have just wanted to touch him. And it's amazing. You would think I was sitting next to Mick Jagger or something.
Now, on the subject of Dick Durbin, I am so excited that he is receiving the Nancy Pelosi Award. In the tradition of Phillip Burton. Now, one thing you have to know about Phillip Burton, and he used this word about himself quite a bit, he was operational. He got the job done. Deep values, broad knowledge, always strategic in his thinking. But how do we get the job done? So we have before us, and we are in the presence of greatness. This is a great man, a great idealist with a practical bent. So he has the vision, the best possible vision for whatever the issue is, but always for our country. But he's operational. He's a master legislator. He and Phil Burton, to watch them operate legislatively is to see a master at work. And in particular for this award, nobody in the Congress, and I could go broader than that, but I'm speaking with authority that I know, nobody in the Congress did more for the Dreamers than Senator Richard Durbin. He had a passion about it. He took such pride. He knew the risk that they would take when they would come forth, as Stephen and Denise did, to come forward and tell their story with their own courage, but what that meant to their families as well, and the risk that was involved in that. And he tried to protect them so much. And we, says she immodestly, we passed the bill in the House of Representatives. Dick Durbin took it to the Senate, got a strong majority of votes. But in the United States Senate, that is not enough. So it fell short of the 60 votes. But what it did do was trigger something, unleash something that has taken us to where we are today within sight of passing comprehensive immigration reform that honors our values. That would not have happened. But that Dick had not taken me to that place. So he's part of something called the Gang of 8, Democrats and Republicans. In the House, ours is called a task force. They rejected the name gang. That's one thing they could agree on. We do not want to be called a gang. But we are working in a bipartisan way. But again, we are at a place on this because all kinds of things, you almost win, you're almost there, but it takes you closer. And this is the person who has masterminded from the head and from the heart the place where we are today. And he is the person, and I know this without going into it, who behind the scenes has protected our values when people wanted to make it be something that could get more votes, but at what cost? But at what cost? And it's been his strength, his knowledge, his vision about something better for America that has taken us to this place. And so when that bill passes in the United States Senate, we can say without any, well, you know, when you get up here and you start talking about something in politics, sometimes the superlatives come out and you say things and hyperbole sets in and pretty soon it's boom, 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 boom. It would be impossible to exaggerate the leadership of Senator Richard Durbin in this. So I'm very honored to present him on the occasion of the Phillip Burton Immigration and Advocacy Awards dinner, the Nancy Pelosi Award for Immigration.
Thank you, Nancy Pelosi. What an honor to be with you this evening. I want to thank the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. Lisa, thank you for leading us as president. Eric, thank you for 25 years of service. And thanks to all the friends and supporters. Before I go any further, I want to say a word of congratulations to Jose Antonio Vargas, who will receive an award shortly for his advocacy. But I first want to tell you a story about the first two dreamers in my life. The first one came to this country at the age of 2. She was carried off of a boat that landed in Baltimore, Maryland in 1911. Her mother brought her to this country with her little brother and sister, and they caught a train in Baltimore and headed to East St. Louis, Illinois to meet my grandfather. That 2-year-old dreamer was my mother, who immigrated to this country from Lithuania. Her mother didn't speak English. She spoke both English and Lithuanian. I speak only English. This is a story that can be repeated many times. This extraordinary woman worked her whole life, and at the age of 26, after married with 2 children, she made the decision to become a citizen of the United States. And she went through the naturalization ceremony in East St. Louis in 1935. Before she died, I once asked her, I'd never thought in her whole life to ask her, whatever happened to your naturalization certificate? And she was not in good health then, but she got up off the couch and was gone just a minute, came back just a minute later with this worn brown envelope, and I opened it, and out came her naturalization certificate, showing this beautiful photograph of this 26-year-old young Lithuanian-American woman, and a little piece of paper fluttered to the floor out of the same envelope. And I reached down, I picked it up, and I said, "What's this, Mom?" And she said, "That's my receipt for the filing fee." And I said to her, $2.50. I said to her, listen now, I said to her, why did you keep this? If the government ever came and challenged me, I have proof that I paid that filing fee. This amazing woman with an 8th grade education raised 3 children and lived long enough to see one of them sworn in to be the United States Senator from the state of Illinois. That is my story. That's my family's story, and that's America's story. I wish my mother could have met Nancy Pelosi. She would have loved her. Because my mother achieved great things in her life, and Nancy Pelosi has done the same. Paul, I believe, is here tonight, her husband. Hey, Paul. The 2 of them, and I'm sure this is the greatest source of pride, have raised such a beautiful family. You have such wonderful children. I've come to know them all, and I know how proud you are of them and their spouses and the grandchildren and all the joy that brings to your life. But when it came to her service in public life, she will be recorded not only as the first woman and first Californian to serve as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, but in the spirit of Get It Done, Phil Burton, she is also the leader of one of the most effective Congresses in the history of our nation. Sam Rayburn, John McCormick, Carl Albert, Tip O'Neill, every Speaker of the House of Representatives since Harry Truman served as president, wanted to pass comprehensive health care reform. Speaker Nancy Pelosi got the job done. And of course, and she kind of rubs it in a little bit, she passed the DREAM Act. It's an amazing story. Nancy, I'm honored. If the time ever comes that some organization creates the Dick Durbin Award, I want Nancy Pelosi to be the first recipient. So let me tell you the story of the second dreamer in my life. It's 13 years ago. There's a young girl in the city of Chicago. She is a Korean immigrant. She was brought to this country at the age of 2. She came with a family that had no money. They had moved from Korea through Brazil to the city of Chicago. Her father had a dream of becoming a minister of a congregation. It never happened, so he was virtually unemployed. Her mother, in desperation, started working in a dry cleaning establishment in the city of Chicago. There were 3 kids living in a one-room efficiency in a basement in the city of Chicago. Mom was keeping it together just with the money she brought into the house. They were very, very poor. This young girl used to go to high school and literally dig through the wastebasket after lunch to find things to eat. That's how bad it was. There was a woman in Chicago who decided years before that she would leave some money for a specific purpose. She said, I want this money to go to create something called the Merit Music Program in Chicago. And this money bought musical instruments and musical instruction for the poorest kids in public schools in Chicago. It's a great program. 100% college placement for the students who learn to use a musical instrument and perform. Well, this little girl decided to become part of the Merit Music Program. And she took up the piano at the age of 12. And she was good. No, she was great. So great that when she graduated from high school, they persuaded her to apply to Juilliard School of Music in New York and the Manhattan Conservatory of Music in New York. And she went to fill out the application form with her mom. They got to the part that said citizenship and nationality, and she turned to her mom and she said, what do I put here? And her mom said, I don't know. We never filed any papers for you. What are we going to do, she said. Her mom said, we're going to call Dick Durbin. Well, all the immigration lawyers in the room know what the answer was. The law of America was very clear. This young woman, Teresa Lee, this Korean immigrant, under the law, was forced to leave America for 10 years and apply to come back in. When I heard this, I thought, that is just plain wrong. She was brought here as a child. She's done nothing wrong. She struggled. She succeeded. She's going to be a success. Why would we do this? And so I introduced the DREAM Act 13 years ago. It was done for Teresa Lee, but it turns out it was being done for a lot more people than Teresa. It turned out that there were hundreds of thousands across America who would be impacted by this legislation. And that was the beginning of this journey, a journey which has led us to this moment today. First, let me tell you about Teresa. Well, it ended up, even though she wasn't documented, she was accepted at the Manhattan Conservatory of Music. 2 families in Chicago who were well off took pity on her and paid for her education. She ended up with a bachelor's degree in music, and she played in Carnegie Hall. She has just completed her PhD in music. She sent me the tape of the recording of her piano concert that led to her PhD. Along the way, good fortune smiled on her, and she married a jazz musician and an American citizen. So Teresa is legal. But she's never given up on helping those who are struggling to make the DREAM Act a reality. I can recall when I used to give speeches in Chicago about the DREAM Act. Some of my political friends said, don't talk about that too much. You know, this immigration issue is shaky. I thought to myself, Ann Durbin, my mom, her naturalization certificate sits right behind my desk on a credenza. I'm proud of where I came from, and we as a nation should be proud of where we came from, and we should be helping those who want to become part of this nation's future. I would give these speeches, many of them to young audiences in Chicago, and most of them would sit quietly and listen to the speech. But almost without fail, when I'd finish those speeches and go outside to my car, in the darkness, there would be someone standing. And they'd come up to me and say, "Senator," they'd look around and they'd say, "I'm a dreamer. Please pass this bill." Things changed. Over the years, we called the bill, stopped by filibusters time and again, but we kept trying. And this whole idea and this movement behind the DREAM Act started growing in intensity. And it really became kind of the touchstone of the whole immigration debate, because it was a matter of simple justice. And then something remarkable happened. The Dreamers decided to step up and tell their stories publicly. It took extraordinary courage. Many of them had spent a lifetime being told by their parents, "Keep your head down, don't get in trouble, don't make waves." They made a lot of waves. A group of dreamers marched from Florida, Miami, Florida, Gabby Pacheco and friends, all the way to Washington, D.C., stopping along the way in city after city, bringing in students who weren't dreamers to join in this alliance. And they started standing up and speaking out at public meetings, and the whole conversation about the dreamers changed. We asked them if they were sure, if it was okay, and they said it was. And I went to the floor of the Senate on 54 separate occasions and gave speeches with color photographs of dreamers. Whenever I would do that, there would be absolute silence in the Senate chamber, in the galleries as well as the pages and everybody else. They all listened intently. And as I told these stories, the basic justice of the DREAM Act was coming through time and time and time again. Harry Reid is the majority leader in the Senate. He believes in the DREAM Act and comprehensive immigration reform, and together we called the DREAM Act for a vote. As Nancy mentioned, we got a majority, 55 votes, but we needed 60 to break the filibuster. We weren't able to do it. It was a Saturday morning, I remember it well, and the galleries were filled with dreamers, and they were wearing caps and gowns as a reminder of what they could bring to America if they were given a chance. We had a meeting afterwards, and there were tears in my eyes and everyone else's because we fell short of the 60 votes. I said to them then, "I'm not going to give up on you. Don't give up on me. We're going to get this done." Well, we are almost there. We are almost there. Comprehensive immigration reform its time has come. In the Senate, there were 8 of us who came together, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, as disparate a group of politicians as you could find. Sitting across the table, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Jeff Flake, 2 Arizona senators, come on. On our side of the table, Bob Menendez, who is, of course, our Hispanic leader of the Hispanic caucus in the Senate. There's only one. And on the Democratic side, Michael Bennet of Colorado, and Chuck Schumer, who chairs the Immigration Subcommittee, has just been a marvelous leader on this issue. We've negotiated for 4 months, 4 straight months. The staff, and I have such a great staff, Joe Zogby, some of you know, Mara Silver, some of you know, Vaishali, some of you know. They worked night and day to get this done. 30 different times we came together, the 8 of us, to try to hammer out the differences and try to reach an agreement. There were times I thought it was over. We just couldn't get there. We were too far apart, but we did. We finally got it. 850-page bill. We sent it to the Senate Judiciary Committee. We had hearings for several days. 30 witnesses. Then we brought it in for the markup and the amendment process. Over 300 amendments, most of them very unfriendly, being offered by people who wanted to see this go away. I won't name names, but if you watch C-SPAN, you can figure it out. What happened? Let me tell you what happened at the end of the day. What happened at the end of the day is the 2 Republicans, Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake, stood by the agreement, and we did too on our side. There were votes that were cast during that committee markup, which were really difficult political votes. On the Republican side, they had to vote against some things which meant a lot to them and would have been very popular. Lindsey Graham's up for re-election. Here he was, casting tough votes to stand by this agreement. Similarly, on our side, there were some really difficult votes, things that I wanted to vote for, things I believed in, things I co-sponsored. One of them I want to mention to you because it's important you know it. We are giving an opportunity to up to 11 million undocumented people to become registered and legal in America on a pathway to citizenship. Within that group, there are over 250,000 LGBT undocumented people who will get a chance to be citizens. That's the good news. The bad news is there's a separate bill that says that same-sex marriage couples will be treated the same as any other families under immigration. I believe in that. I co-sponsored that. The Republicans, when we sat down, said it's a deal breaker. You put that in the bill and we walk. That's the kind of things you face. And so the amendment came up for consideration. Senator Graham said, you have me on immigration, you don't have me on marriage. If you put this in, it's over. Jeff Flake said the same thing. And so we had to basically step back from adding that into the bill. It's painful. I grew up in the civil rights era. Nancy, you remember those days, how much this means to us. But those were the decisions that had to be made to bring us to the moment where we could call this for a final vote. And you know what happened? 13-5. I've never seen a committee room erupt the way that committee room erupted. All the dreamers and all the people, si se puede, yes we can, standing up, cheering for that moment. We're finally there, but we aren't at the finish line. We have to do this in the Senate. In 10 days we'll start. There'll be a lot of amendments. We'll spend 3 weeks on these amendments, but we have a good chance, a very good chance to pass this and send it over to our friends in the House. There's a comparable effort underway in the House. Javier Becerra from the state of California is involved in that effort. I want to salute him. And from my state, has anyone ever heard of Luis Gutierrez? Of course he is there. And we are working to get that done. I don't want to take any more time this evening because I know that there's more to be said in this program, but I do want to say this. To the dreamers who have gathered tonight, I can't tell you what your presence here means to me. To hear Denise and Steve tell these touching stories about what you and your families have gone through and what you have gone through personally, and I know your folks have been deported, and this breaks your heart as you think about what it means to you in your life. Thanks for not giving up hope, all of you dreamers. Thank you for standing up for this basic elemental justice, that we, this nation of immigrants, are strong because of our diversity. And it is our diversity that brings us to this moment in time. I once went back to the little village in Lithuania where my mother was born. She never was able to return, but I got there. And I asked them to take me around and said, what is here today that was here in 1911 when she left? They took me to the Catholic Church where she was baptized. I walked into the same church where she was baptized. Then they took me down to show me the well in the center of town that everyone drew their water from. Said, undoubtedly your grandparents drew water from that well. And I thought to myself at that moment, what it must have been like that night when the Kutkaita family called in their relatives and friends and said, we have an announcement to make. We have decided that we're going to America. We know some Lithuanians who have gone there before us. They've gone to a place called East St. Louis, Illinois. And that's where we're going. First, my grandfather Robert was going to find a job. And as soon as he found a job, he was going to send a note back to my grandmother, and she was going to bring the 3 kids with her. I thought about that, and then I got this image in my mind, and then put it in your mind about your family, about your parents, about your grandparents. Think about that meeting when they finally made this decision and they called in everyone to tell them. I am just sure that in so many instances after that meeting, when the families broke up and started walking back home, some neighbor turned to another and said, can you believe that? Can you believe the Kutkaitas are going to leave that good home? They're going to leave their church where they were baptized and married. They're going to leave all their relatives, their cat, their dogs, their chickens, their garden, all their friends, to go to a place where they don't even speak the language. They'll be back. No, they didn't go back. They weathered the adversity and challenges of being an immigrant in America. And thank God they did, and all of our parents and grandparents did. This is who we are. This is part of our DNA. That thirst for opportunity, that sense of commitment and adventure that really brought them to this country to build this into an amazing nation of immigrants today. We need to keep that spirit alive. Thank you for doing that.